Well, good morning, everybody. We've come to the end of a week. Hope it's going well for you and you're excited about being in church Sunday and bringing somebody with you. Hope you're also praying for God to give you an opportunity today to invite someone to come with you. We're in chapter 31 of Jeremiah, and this will conclude our readings in Jeremiah until I think it's up in late August. We'll pick back up. We're going to do spend some time in Psalms and Ezekiel. And I think Romans, and then we'll come back to Jeremiah and complete this story. But today we're in chapter 31, and some of you are saying, "Oh, I'm so ready to get out of Jeremiah because it's been kind of depressing, maybe, with all the judgment." But hey, that's reality. That's reality. All right, now chapter 31 is a message of hope. That's what this chapter is all about. Hope, and it's hope on two levels. And both of them have to do with the future. And so the first one is he makes it really clear in this chapter that the Jews who are in exile would return to Jerusalem and Judea. It would not be the ones who went into exile. As I said yesterday, it would be their children and grandchildren and maybe great-grandchildren. But they would come back, and the city of Jerusalem would be rebuilt. So he's promising them and giving them the hope that, after the 70 years of captivity, they would return. And that happened in 538, 537 BC when Persia conquered Babylon, and Cyrus, the new king, allowed the people that Babylon had deported to return to their homelands if they wanted, and many of the Jews did. Now, look in chapter 31. Here's this message of hope about coming back to the promised land, back to Jerusalem and so on. Verse 1. At that time, declares the Lord, that's after the 70 years, and when God visits them there in Babylon, I will be the God of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. Now remember, they've been under the judgment of God, so he's giving them hope. Verse 4, again, I will build you, and you will be rebuilt, O Virgin of Israel. Again, you will take up your tambourines and go forth to the dances of the merrymakers. There's coming a day of celebration in your future. Verse 5, again, you will plant vineyards on the hills of Samaria, and the planters will plant and will enjoy them. You're going to come back and raise your vineyards, and you're going to create your wine and all that. Verse 6, for there will be a day when watchmen on the hills of Ephraim call out, arise and let us go up to Zion. Zion, another name for Jerusalem, the holy mountain, to the Lord our God. There's going to come a day when people, it's time to go to Jerusalem, time to go to the temple, it's time to go to the festival, it's time to go worship at the temple. Verse 8. Behold, I am bringing them from the north country. Remember the Fertile Crescent. So if Israel is here and Babylon's over here, between was a desert. So you would go north along the Fertile Crescent and then south over. So they're going to come back home the same way they left. And he says in the middle of verse 8, I will gather them from the remote parts of the earth. At the end of verse 8, a great company, they will return here. They're coming home. Down in verse 10, hear the word of the Lord, O nations, and declare in the coastlands afar off and say, he who scattered Israel will gather him. The very one that scattered Israel into exile will gather Israel and bring him back. And he says, I will keep Israel as a shepherd keeps his flock. It's just a beautiful image. Verse 11, for the Lord has ransomed Jacob. The Lord has ransomed Jacob and redeemed him from the hand of him who was stronger than he. It's the picture that you pay a ransom to get someone back who's been kidnapped. And God says, I'm paying the ransom. I'm going to free them from the one that was stronger, Babylon, that kidnapped them. Just another image for the exile. And then just a couple more verses on this. Down in verse 15. Thus says the Lord, a voice is heard in Ramah. That was the place where the Babylonians gathered the Jew to start their march to exile. So that place where they, as a group, started having to leave home and go to exile, he says there's going to be a voice in the future there. Lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted. That's what it was like when they started this march. But in verse 16, thus says the Lord, restrain your voice from weeping. Stop crying. And your eyes from tears. For your work will be rewarded, declares the Lord, and they will return from the land of the enemy. This was a place of crying, but that day's going to stop because one day you're coming home. Verse 17, there is hope for your future, declares the Lord, and your children. Aha. See, not them. Their children, their grandchildren. Your children, your descendants will return to their own territory. Even though they had never seen it, it was still their homeland, and they would be coming back. And one last one along this, verse 21. I love the image of this. Set up for yourselves road marks. Place for yourself guideposts. Direct your mind to the highway, the way by which you went. In other words, it's like, hey, put markers along the path you all traveled to Babylon, because I'm bringing you back that way. Verse 21, return, O virgin Israel, return to these your cities. I'm going to bring you back the same way you were carried off. So, message of hope. It is okay for you and me to cling to the hope of heaven. It is okay for us to cling to the hope of the second coming, the hope of the resurrection, the future. God very clearly said to the Jewish people during this time of suffering, here's your future. And it was a message of hope. You and I live in uncertain times. We have sickness and we have death, but God has told us how it ends. He's told us about the future. We win. Don't, when I was younger, atheists and psychologists would attack Christianity as being worthless because all you all have is pie in the sky and the sweet by and by. Well, guess what? We have pie in the sky and the sweet by and by, and praise Jesus for it. Don't let any atheist or psychologist talk you out of that hope. God gave it to you. Cling to it. It's good. It's okay. It's okay. Now, real quickly, because I don't want to go as long as I did yesterday. There's a second hope in this, and it's even more in the future than the returning exiles in, the 537, 535, and so on. He talks about the new covenant in verses 31 to 33. When he says, behold, days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not like the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, because in the days of Moses, if you will be my people and keep my covenant and obey my commands, I will be your God and I'll give you this land. He said, I'm going to make a different kind of covenant. And he says in verse 33, this covenant which I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord, I will put my law within them and on their heart. On their heart I will write it, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Do you know that the New Testament in many places, including Hebrews chapter 8 and 9, say that Jesus Christ and those who believe in him are the fulfillment of that new covenant? Paul in Romans talks about followers of Jesus, i.e. the church, being true Israel, that everyone who believes is a descendant of Abraham, not by blood, but by faith. And the new covenant is the New Testament. It's Jesus. It's Jesus. And those who know Jesus, we are Gentile and Jew who believe in Jesus are the fulfillment of that new covenant, because Jeremiah not only gives them hope for their return from exile in the 500s BC, he was looking forward to the Messianic age. He was looking forward to the Messiah, Jesus Christ, and the new covenant, because we're not saved because Abraham's blood flows through our veins. We are saved because in Jesus he's written it on our hearts, and that's an eternal hope. Chapter 31 is such an important chapter. Well, I'll see you Monday. We're going to be in the book of Psalms, Psalm 60. So hope you read that. But be in God's house Sunday morning and bring somebody with you and pray for people to be saved and pray for people to get right with God. God bless you. And I'll see you Sunday morning, and then I'll see you Monday.